You guys, the year is almost over. It's almost Christmas, and I'm still rocking my Movember mustache. And there's purpose for this. It is because I feel so deeply about men's mental health because it has to do with like those of us with ADHD typically deal with mental health. So it's near and dear to my heart. And so I don't know, this might just become a permanent thing. We'll have to see. Has to do with what is a better choice for managing ADHD, or what is the best choice? What is the optimal choice for supporting managing ADHD? Is it medication or is it movement? Both are highly regarded with data. Both, there's a good argument with both of them as to which one is the best. And one of the best, I guess, arguments I've heard out there recently, and I don't know if it was an argument, but I heard it on Andrew Huberman's podcast. And they talked about parents medicating and a lot of parents choosing to medicate later in life instead of earlier on. And one of the arguments to medicating early on was that is when the brunt of neuroplasticity is happening in our lives is as children. I'm also for movement though, because there's such compelling evidence of movement and how much it can support and manage ADHD. And I get it with our kids, it's hard to get them to move. And that's going to be a whole different episode on how we get them to do that. But in this one, I really just want to focus on, which one's better, or here's one. There could be both. It could be both. There may not be a better, but I will tell you, in my opinion, I do think that movement wins out by a little bit. And I'm going to explain why I think that. When we start adding in prescriptions, no, I'm not talking about supplements. I'm not talking about like L-theanine or anything like that. I'm talking about like your Adderalls, your Vyvances. When we start adding these in, these start, for lack of better terms, like supercharging our physiology. It really turns up the notch on our cardiovascular system, which it is really revving up the system, which is how we get the results that we need from a lot of these. And that's not necessarily the bad part. The bad part is that we have to offset that. I want you to kind of picture this. What we're doing a lot of times is like adding a supercharger or like a turbocharger onto our car. So I want you to imagine that. And the car you're adding it onto is you. It's like your body. And your body, like that version of that car, is whatever shape your body is in, your body's current physiology. So, if your body is that of a 2020 car, that's awesome. Like that could be a very opportune time for utilizing a prescription, or for your child even, right? But into a car that's more like a 96 Toyota Corolla that, hasn't had a lot of tune-ups and we haven't really been taking care of it. That's a whole different story. And at some point, having that turbo or that supercharger on that car is good. There's a cost that is going to come to that. That car is going to have to do something while adding that in. It's going to have to replace parts, right? To make sure that that turbo, a supercharger, doesn't just like grind it into the ground. And that's where the movement and exercise comes in. Now, that would be like in an adult, I guess, variation. If we were looking at a kid, that would probably be a lot newer of a car. But even that, right? You get a new car and you're like, let's put the supercharger on it. And, you get a car like that and we drive it like assholes, right? And we know we do because as we were younger, we drove our bodies into the ground. So like, yeah, that's what happens. That's what we do with those, right? And then we add this prescription drug on top of that, this supercharger that's like really going to antagonize that and make it fun to do that. Again, we have to do something on the back end. You're going to be replacing parts. You're going to have to put different parts in to that car or constantly updating parts and putting, like I said, new parts in to keep up with it. And that, again, would be the exercise, the movement, sports, whatever you want to call it. But if we aren't adding that in with this, and that turbocharger, that turbo, that if you just add this onto your car and you aren't upgrading parts and taking care of it and doing oil changes, which would be like eating healthy and getting good sleep and movement, working out, then eventually you're going to drive that thing into the ground and it's going to stop working. And that's when we have to find new medications, when medications just stop working, or we got to up the medication, whatever the case is. And so my argument to this is that even acutely, like if I just took some Adderall today or this week, or Vyvanse or whatever, I would see an immediate change. An immediate change in my cognitive ability, probably my mood, a lot of these different things. And so when we take these drugs, we see a big, impactful, acute moment. But we see that same thing with exercise too. Like if we work out first thing in the morning, or we just work out and we sweat and we get our heart rate up a bit, we see the same result. So both give us these big drops of dopamine or serotonin or neurochemicals as a whole, right? So we get these huge drops from both of them. It's just that one of them over time will start to do damage if that isn't mitigated by the other choice. Meaning, like, if we are only looking at pharmaceutical options, the superchargers, the turbos on the car, and we're never looking at movement, sports, sleep, food, supplements. But for this video, let's just talk about movement as a whole, working out, getting walks in, whatever the case is. Then at some point, that car is going to go to hell in a handbasket. That's just what's going to happen. And so this is why I would say both of them are great options. Neither one of them, obviously working out's never a bad option, but prescriptions definitely get a bad rap, and there's a good place for them, but they shouldn't really be packaged alone. They should be packaged with movement or that health aspect of it. Because if you do, like I said, if you do the prescriptions without the movement, it will come to a halt. Now, if you do the movement without the prescription, that's not going to come to a halt. I mean, it could come to a halt if like you were just never eating and just really treating your body better, like not sleeping, which are all total ADHD things to do. So I guess this could end up on the bad side of it for us. But for the most part, movement, working out, it doesn't work that way. It usually ends up on the plus side. So in my opinion, and from the data that I've read, the better of the two would be movement, but together combined is going to be best case scenario. Having one without the other may not have optimal effects, because I guess now that I'm saying it out loud, without the prescription, you may not have the motivation to get up and do the movement, to do the exercise. And so these things, they probably run hand in hand. We probably really shouldn't be having the one without the other, and we might need the one to do the other. So movement, guys, is so crucial for managing and supporting ADHD, because every time we move, every time I'm moving my hands, every time I blink, all of that produces a little bath of neurochemicals and dopamine in my brain. And the bigger the movement, the harder the movement, the more repetitive the movement, the more of a bath, the more of those get kind of released all throughout the brain. And so we have to make sure that we are moving throughout the day, and not just these little ones. We are big, emphatic, hard movements, whether it be you're deadlifting, you're going on a walk, you're going on a run, maybe you like the skateboard. I don't know. It doesn't matter, but we have to get the movement in. And if we're not getting the movement in, just utilizing the prescriptions alone, at some point that will hit you into a brick wall. And then you're gonna be like, dang, now what? Now what do I gotta do? And it's going to be the movement part. So you guys, I really hope this kind of gives some education out there as far as movement and how well it works, especially compared to utilizing prescriptions like your Adderalls, like your Vyvanse, like your Essentials, all the other ones that you utilize for ADHD out there, and really kind of brings together why, if you're going to use one, you should use the other. And movement is really the key. It is the key to managing all of this with or without that medication. Guys, if you have questions, I'd love to hear about them in the comments. Other than that, have an amazing day.